Hello! We're here! Live!
Hey, everybody!
Hello.
Hey, Greg? Greg, is your mic on? Uh-oh. It looks like Greg muted himself. All right, well, if Greg tunes in later, he'll get to tell you what's up. But in the meantime, we have a whole bunch of stuff to talk to you guys about. First and foremost, thank you all so much for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to see everyone. Just so excited to talk and chat and tune into these live streams about this really amazing project that we all get to be a part of. And it's just so great to share everything with you. So thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah! It's so good. Oh, Fancy beat me to it. I was going to say cheers. It's wonderful to be here with you all, talk about the game. Boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to go through.
Yep. So, as our social media content and the title of this stream suggests, we're going to be talking about the upcoming alpha. So the most important thing for everyone to understand is that the alpha is going to roll out in stages. The first and most important step of the alpha is testing for server scalability. So we're calling that phase 0 because it's really just going to be about making sure that our matchmaking and our server stability works at scale. We haven't had the opportunity to test that internally, and we want to make sure that the single most fundamental aspect of the game, getting people into it to play, works smoothly before we start muddying the waters with all of the cool content that we're going to be rolling out through the future phases of the alpha. So for everyone excited to see what the alpha is going to look like, it's going to roll out in stages. We don't have all the content ready at once because if it was all ready, we'd be in beta. And we're going to go over what all that stuff is going to look like because server stability is really cool and really important and really hard to talk about on a stream. So let's kick things off.
All right, let's go. Okay, first up, we have this awesome piece of artwork by Min. There's actually a lot more to this piece, but we didn't want to show it because it spoils a few things. But this by itself is freaking cool. One of the forms of our Goliaths. Anyway, amazing. I know. Let's move on. All right, so something that I'm very excited about, because, I mean, you know, finally, it's in the game. Anyway, I've been working really hard on a lot of this stuff, and I want to show you guys what the new UI style of our game is. So here it is. There it is.
I don't know if the slide deck is showing up on stream.
Oh, really? Oh, I know. Sorry, I get it. I know why. I know why. I'm an idiot. All right, here we go. There it is. All right, there it is. Thanks for telling me that, because I would have literally not known. Okay, I switched to another scene, so here we go. This is what I was talking about with the Goliath. All right. Now you guys can see it. Cue the oohs and ahs. Great. Okay. Anyway, UI stuff. Cool. Here is a first glimpse, and I know like some of the camera stuff's in the way here, but this is the first glimpse of like the new UI. So there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff that you guys haven't seen yet, and you'll see it all in a video, but yes, this is kind of the new style, and I realize all the cameras are actually in the way, so that's great. All right.
No, it's okay. One of the portraits is actually blocking out some content that we aren't prepared to share.
I realized that too.
So that's a choice.
Okay, so, and you know what? We'll probably have a lot of this updated stuff, like, once we hide one or two things that we didn't realize, like, available to you guys, so you'll be able to see the whole thing. But yeah, new play screen, new game tiles. Here is a glimpse into the heroes screen, like, hero gallery with a few of the features we want to have, like mastery page and even a builder. We've talked about this a lot, but this is the new look. This is where things are. Things have moved a lot. All right, so this is a hero page, kind of like what we want to do. Just like phase 1 of it. There's a lot to do in a very short amount of time, especially for Rob, who was implementing a lot of this along with Killboy. So basically, think of this as like phase 1 of the redesign of the UI. And, you know, setting screens might not be like super amazing, but, you know, I'm super excited that we finally decided on like the new look we want to go for. So we have like left nav, things are cleaner. Okay.
And for the record, this is all in-game content, and we can actually mess with these settings in the game once these are pushed out to the build, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's so cool.
All right, let's see it in action. Pretty cool. Wow. Amazing. Things are working. It's actually functional.
Yep.
I'm very impressed.
This is our in-game menu.
In-game stuff,
You know?
working. Cool, amazing, exciting. All right. I'm very excited. Oops, shit, I think I went. No, wait, this is right. Okay.
Yeah.
Last bit of
now you're doing
UI
it.
here. Okay, this is something also very exciting, guys. This is the hero select in-game. You can actually pick your hero, ignore the icons that are not scaled completely right on the left, but hold on, I want to see it again because it's so freaking cool. Like, they're all moving. You'll notice that they don't have like their weapons in there, but that's something Rob can probably talk about at some point. But basically, thanks to Rob and Pat, this is like set up, and each team can select their heroes, so pretty awesome. All right, all right, this is a new section. Let me know if I'm going too fast.
So before we move on from the months of hard work that you and Rob have been putting into building all of these screens and getting them running in the game, why don't you two talk just a little bit about the process? So as I understand it, because I keep track of so many projects that I don't get into the nitty gritty with you guys very often. So this is honestly a really exciting moment for me too. As I understand it, the workflow is that Failco, you design these UIs in an image editing program, and then you and Rob pass the designs back and forth to build them in Unreal. And as I also understand it, Rob, Unreal's user interface system called UMG is a real bear to work with. So tell us about like some of the stuff you did to make this all happen.
Yeah, UMG is it's probably my least favorite part of Unreal. It's just like, especially somebody who comes from like a web dev background, where a lot of that stuff is sort of intuitive and in many cases done for you. Having to do it in like an entirely new system is quite hard, especially when that system is UMG. It just has a lot of like, you have to deal with a lot of things from a more like, you have to like think about like the rendering process and everything, right? So as an example, you can't just make something that is like 10 pixels by 10 pixels in UMG. There's no such thing as a pixel. There are only like arbitrary units. So what that means is like, there are only arbitrary units all the way down. So if you have a UMG component inside of a UMG component inside of a UMG component, then you have arbitrary units inside of arbitrary units inside of arbitrary units. And so what that means for a game that uses a lot of really complicated shapes like us, it just makes things very tricky, like parallelograms, hexagons, all these types of things. If it's not a box or a circle, UMG has problems. So we've had our we've had our issues. You know, we have our ways of dealing with it, but it is what it is. You know, we've made, I think, a pretty nice looking UI in spite of all the difficulties. So, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah, it's definitely been a process. A lot of like, hey, we don't know how to do this right now, which is like, you know, cool. well, we can. We have to figure out like ways around things, and it's been very interesting. But it's been really fun for me to at least like have another chance at like making the UI different than it was. Like I look back now at the old UI and I'm like, oh my god, it was so bad. So I don't know. It's been really fun to just like get in there, make some new like play tiles and stuff like that. I don't know. It's been fun. Other than Rob telling me I can't do that. I can't do this. I get it, but it hurts.
Yeah. For some reference, for those of you who looked at the news post that we dropped at the end of last month, like making a rectangular bar that fills up with some value as the game tells it to was a really easy system for the UI team to build. But then to turn that rectangular bar into a bar with like hexagonal edges took like 6 extra hours of work just to make those corners. So yeah,
it makes you appreciate Gigantic's UI so much more. It's like we're trying to do some of what they did, and it's like, wow, like this was actually very complicated. So
yeah, that game was 100% bespoke, and that's why we loved it.
All right, do you want to move on?
I mean, I just like I'm just looking at these in our slideshow, and it just looks so good. So congratulations, both of you, for doing such amazing work and getting us in the game. I can't wait to actually get my hands on it.
Me too.
Okay, so this next section has been Rob and Killboy tirelessly working on some of the things that you don't notice when they're right, but you feel it when they're wrong. Kinds of details that have to be absolutely perfect for us to hit our internal benchmarks. So Rob, why don't you tell us about what we're going to see here?
Yeah, so as we've recently been going through and sort of like scaling up a lot of systems, a lot of like, honestly, a lot of game dev is sort of like, well, where do I put something? Where does something live? You know? And so we used to have a lot of stuff that lived in sort of the animation realm, stuff for handling camera. And as we have broken that animation stuff out to be more sophisticated, we have also had to break out that camera stuff to be more sophisticated. And so, I kind of reverse engineered Gigantic's camera, and there's quite a lot going on there. There's quite a lot of really interesting stuff going on, which you'll see. But to put it shortly, they've got things like when you sprint, the camera zooms in and your FOV changes and things like that. But there's also like camera lag, actually, even though it's a like competitive game with aiming, which they always tell you not to do camera lag, as my dog is whining in the background. But they constrain it to an axis. So this was very difficult to achieve in Unreal Engine. In fact, if you search, how do I constrain camera lag to an axis, you'll find a bunch of those like typical game dev threads where they are like, I never figured this out. There's like, it's just the post just ends and nobody helped them, whatever. But we figured out how to do it. We had to like crack open the component itself and overwrite a bunch of stuff. But we did figure out how to do it. And so we do have a little video showing the camera comparison where we're trying to more or less make it feel the same.
Let's see. This might be a little out of order here, but we saw the jump. The jump was very similar with the lag. Let's see this one. Oh, this is it. Yeah.
So yeah, our lead programmer Killboy put several hours and hours of work into replicating the timing and the floatiness of Gigantic's jump 1-to-1, because we just like, if it's not perfect, it's not good enough,
Yeah, and it's funny, like honestly, a lot of the game feel comes from the camera, and it's something you don't even think about because it works so well. But yeah, it was something we were lacking a lot. But like looking at this in comparison to Gigantic, wow, you nailed it. This is like really impressive. I'm gonna look at it again.
It took quite a lot to reverse engineer all the stuff that's like going on, but yeah, it was quite a learning experience. But yeah, Yeah, the lag on only one axis is really the interesting part, and then they sort of adjust the lag further when you're sprinting. They've got different values, I'm assuming, being you can see the camera gets behind her there and comes back when she's sprinting. So there's all kinds of really interesting stuff that, like, I would say is kind of in that category of, like, if you took it away, people would say something feels wrong, but I can't quite tell you what it is, type of a deal. But when it's there, it feels really good.
Wow, it looks really good.
And as I understand it, the way that you did this was you dug into our engine and you built a system that lets us actually tune all of these values with like drop downs and input fields, right?
Yeah. So a designer could just go in the editor. I guess I could have included a screenshot of that, but yeah, it's all totally editable, like in real time inside the editor. So you could change like the amount of lag, how much it changes when you're sprinting, the degree at which your character like rotates when they're sprinting, like how fast that transition is, like all kinds of stuff fully configurable per hero. So, yep.
Nice.
And I'm actually just going to fire a question that I don't know the answer to at you in the middle of the stream. Could it be configurable for ability? Like if we wanted to give a character a like 100% speed boost that made them twice as fast while sprinting, could you set it up so that the camera lag is different while that ability is active?
Yeah, because the camera is now like kind of like what I said before, where like you have to figure out where to put stuff. Like the camera is now like the camera logic, I should say, is now in the right place, and so gameplay ability system has access to it and all that. Yeah, so you could even do like more. Yeah, you could like tie it to their velocity even, so you don't even have to worry about it. You could do all kinds of stuff now.
That's
Nice.
really cool. Also,
That's
there's rectangles. Remember that power UI?
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway.
Oh, that would, yeah.
All right, next
Okay.
up.
Yeah, so that's like what we've been doing with camera and movement. It might seem little, but it's really big.
I don't know. That's a pretty big accomplishment. I mean,
Yeah.
the difference, like, we're gonna have to go back through like old clips and like see them next to each other. I mean, it's gonna be a big deal, especially when like the characters get all their animations. Then it's really gonna,
Yep.
you know,
Mhm.
be easy to see.
Yeah, like so much of like what it's coming down to, and I can like it's easy to say this from a developer perspective, is so much of what it's coming down to with the game feel at this point is the impression of like impact and motion that animations give to characters that from a mechanical standpoint we're actually hitting one-to-one replication, and all we need now is to add that like extra level of squash to a character when they hit the ground, when they jump, and those dust puffs to make the sprint feel faster. But those are all like cosmetic things that add to feel and aren't part of the game's mechanics themselves. And we're there. We're there.
Yeah, it's a really good step. Let's
Yeah.
see. All right.
So in terms of the realm of replicating the style and feel of the game that we love, let's talk about what we've been doing in the purely visual realm. So if you can give us a quick breakdown, Danielle, for those who are not super entrenched in 3D modeling and animation, what are shaders and materials?
Materials and shaders basically determine how a character looks and how they react to the lighting that you have in scenes. And Pat, let's see. I want to see if basically we can. Here we go. Much better quality. Anyway, so you can see that like Pat's done a lot of work with making the metal.
You're gonna have to pull up the other video.
Oh.
There we go.
Right, yeah. So Pat's done a lot of work with making the lighting actually like affecting the characters in a way that like shows them in their best light. So there's like a lot of post-processing things that's going on to kind of like make the materials like look good no matter where the lighting is. Let me show you. Hold on. Okay. So here's another really good example. So I think there's lighting in this one. There might not be, but dang it. There's so many videos. I might not have it. But anyway, so individual lights will now affect the characters as they get closer, which is actually pretty cool. So going to be affected by the lighting a little differently. Like, you can notice, like, these characters are actually a lot lighter than they were. They used to be, like, dark, like, affected by the actual lighting in the environment, but now, like, they almost have, like, their own light source so that they don't look dark, and the shadows aren't too crazy like they were before. Like, you can actually see Matani's, like, patterns, and her color last stream or something, it was, like, darker. So we've come a long way to, like, getting to their kind of, like, I don't know, like in Gigantic, if you've ever, like, noticed, like, Beckett always looks light no matter where she goes. So quick rundown there. All right, let's see.
Yeah.
I think, oh, here we go. Okay. Here's Pat with, like, the shader and the materials. And he can, like, quickly basically plug in whatever color he wants, like, very quickly to it. And the lighting won't really change on the character, which is great. Yeah. So we can probably do, like, reskins very easily using a method similar to this. So it's exciting.
Yeah. And what's also really cool about this is we can build maps with, like, different types of ambient light. And, you know, if we have, like, a snow map and a volcano map, the materials are set up to handle the light that hits them differently. And you'll get that, you'll get, your character will look, you know, just that little bit different when it's like the glow of an ice crystal versus the glow of a lava pool hitting them. And
there it is.
You know, it's like,
all right.
It's not one of those necessary details for making the game, but it's one of those things that just is so cool that we want it. And here,
so you can see, like, the lighting, as they get close to a light source, it affects them. But not enough to the point where they, like, look completely, like, disgusting and dark and shadowy. So it's pretty good. Good job, Pat. Post-processing. All right. So this is also a lot of work that Pat's been doing. So your Patreon tax dollars have been well spent. Pat's been very, very hard at work doing, you know, lots of modeling stuff, improvements to the models, as you've seen with materials, and rigging and animation. So just fully entrenched in all that stuff. So Geist is actually the character Pat's been working on a lot, like trying to get this guy with his animations. And this is also a wallpaper that you can get if you're a patron, just saying, made by Min. Did an awesome job. Geist looks freaking awesome. As usual. I mean, Geist is cool. All right, so you know what? Here we go. This is a better quality video. This is Geist idle currently. And we did share this a little bit, but I mean, look at that. He's getting his animations. It's cool. Does a little floaty float. Ghost ad. But as you can see, Pat's actually been doing a lot of passes to the materials on Geist. Like, he was always meant to be more brassy than metal, so it's kind of like, you know, how shiny do we make him? How beat up do we make him? But he's really come a long way. What really impresses me is that chain skirt, because it's not so easy to pull off in real life or in the game.
I think I could rock that.
Well, maybe you could. Let's see. All right. Oh, okay. So this is a little demonstration of Pat using this new tool. I actually have notes here because it's a lot. So Pat's been using, like, an open source rigging and animation framework tool called MGear. Let's see. It uses a bunch of, like, it allows you to make custom scripts, and you can also import the MGear guides that you set up. That's what the yellow and red, like, little balls were. You can set those up, and you tell it where to place kind of like the joints, and then you can tell it to build where you tell it to build, and it actually makes the rig for you. And as you can see, the joints are in place. Basically, he can now, like, move the joints of Geist. And this has been, like, a lot of setup actually to get to this point, because you know, it's learning a new tool in general is always going to take some time, but I mean, the results are great. Like, Geist is fully rigged. So let's just, like, quickly see this again, because it's really crazy. Just like rigging is something that you just gotta have the mind for, because it's got a little bit of everything in it. Programming, animation. Like, I've seen Pat just making so many custom scripts, troubleshooting, the works, the fun parts. But the cool thing is that it goes from this to something like the idol we saw, and there's actually there might be more to show you, just saying. But yeah.
So we're gonna take you through. I've seen all this, so we're gonna take you through the process of setting Geist up to be animated, and how we got to the point where Pat could like make that sweet looking idol. And
Okay.
and then we're gonna show you a little bit more of what Pat has accomplished in this realm.
Oops, I'm going too far. Ah!
So here's, no, I think this is right. So here's the rig like in action.
Sorry, I keep pressing one button and it's like
that one, this one. Yeah. What? There we go.
Just gonna move this. Okay, there we go.
So here's the rig in action, and it's so Geist is actually one of our simpler rigs. For those of you saying Geist is mega complicated, Pat built a custom one for him because he has no legs, and having no legs means it's less work to rig.
Yeah, and what this whole weird like rainbow thing is that you see here, this is called like an anim picker. So basically it's some kind of like quality of life tool to help animators like select controls easily. Like, as you can see, it kind of looks like Geist. So you can tell kind of like where the general head is, like which one's the shoulder, and the hands are those like really weird like columns there. So it was really interesting. This is like an easy way to kind of like have an animator go and select groups of controls. Like, even looking at this, and I don't even rig, like I can tell that pink long rectangle and that blue long rectangle control the wrist. So it's like visually more like easy for them to understand and like organize in their brain, and it's a little just easier in general. So a great tool that Pat has picked up and been using. And of course, like you can add custom scripts to the buttons to like perform like special actions. So basically Pat made a custom script to like change the pauldrons so that they don't follow the arms anymore like directly. So he can now have like greater control of the rig, which is great.
Yeah, and that's like a cool kind of special unique thing for Geist because he's a floaty ghost man made of chains. So we want his different pieces that would normally move together to be kind of disjointed to add to that spooky feel that he gives.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's go to the next one here. So this one is, oh, sorry. It's just a demonstration of Geist's cape.
Yeah. And at the end of explaining how this thing works to me, he quoted the famous Edna mode of The Incredibles and said, "No capes, no more capes for our characters for a while."
Oh yeah, Rob said that too.
Yeah.
I mean, why? They look so easy to rig.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually pretty crazy. Like now this cape has so much you could do with it, which is great because we don't want to use physics for capes. We want them to be hand animated. We want them to have that like art feel to them. So R4's cape's coming next, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah. R4 is a placeholder animation that a friend of the project, Mokazan of Revenblade, pulled together for us, and we're really looking forward to getting enough of our other characters in that we can go back and do our original like vision of R4.
Yeah.
For the game, because he's got some like pretty sweet moves with that big old mace. But we need to get the rest of our characters in. So in the meantime, we're like leaning on and incredibly grateful for that gift of effort. But we saw Geist's cape. We saw how cool it is that we can make it billow. Let's see it.
Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, so here is one of the animations. So this is, oh gosh, this is skill 3, right?
Yeah, that's emanate.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's emanate. Yeah. So that's Geist doing like summoning the power, like dark power orb, and kind of like
Launching it from
launching it forward.
wretched form.
All right, let's see. So pretty cool. I actually have a better one for this. Oh, this is a better one of that skill we just saw, actually. Look at that quality. Look at that billow. Sorry, I gotta watch it one more time because it's pretty cool. Yes. Oh, it's so cool. I love it. Oh, man, the cape. Oh, it's so cool. Good job, Pat.
Yeah.
Impressive work.
So, patrons, this is your Patreon money at work. Thank you so much. Pat was able to put his general, his like longstanding contract work to the side and work full time on Project Stamina for the last month and a half. And this is about half of what he's accomplished with it.
Oh, shit. You know what? I realized that we just totally called that ability the wrong thing. So that's him doing the shield ability.
Oh, that's the shield. That makes more sense.
Yep,
that makes
it makes
more
a
sense.
lot more sense now. I'm embarrassed.
It's okay. I forget what that one's called. I haven't looked at his character sheet in a minute.
Me neither, but you know what? It actually makes a lot more sense looking at it now. So thanks, Pat.
It does.
Pat was giving me a look. All right, so this is actually Geist's summon ability. So it's actually really cool. Like you can points. Minion comes up from the ground. Oh man, it's gonna be cool. We don't have minion yet, but you imagine he's pointing at a spot, and that's where minion's going to materialize from. It's like, get over here! Stop being lazy. Okay, I gotta look at it one more time. I'm sorry. It's neat. Oh my god. Anyway, so I was watching Pat make this, and it's actually really cool. Like, we're finally starting to get to, like, just kind of, like, the nitty-gritty of, like, the animation stuff, just because he wanted, you know, Geist is kind of, like, his project right now. But there's a lot of, like, the squashing and stretching with, like, the finger. So there's, like, one frame where it looks really weird. He has, like, a noodle, like, coming out of his frickin' finger. But it's great. It looks good as an animation. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done a lot of like studying of 2D and 3D animation techniques. Like, well, we'll get into like squash and stretch and body breaking in a minute. But now that you've seen the summon, we've got a little bit of a treat. Take it away.
All right, so this is actually really cool. So Minion is not like done. His model is more or less kind of modeled, but it's not textured or anything like that. But we recently have an amazing VFX person who's helping us out and doing awesome work. And this was Minion's Flame. And this is kind of the look of VFX that are coming to our game. So you have this to look forward to. Think of it as a proof of concept, but it looks pretty cool, right?
And yeah, this new VFX person has been absolutely killing it. We'll have more of their work in future streams. And in the meantime, we're going to be adding a new blue name to the Discord server pretty soon. So y'all can say hi.
Yay! All right. So here is a little bit more of the rigging Pat's been doing. This is on Kira. Basically demonstrating how we have Pat has separated out the heels from the rest of the foot to make even finer controls for animation. So it might not look like a lot, but it really is. It's going to make a lot of difference between like characters looking like they're flat footing it everywhere or actually like taking steps. So
Yeah.
plus it's
And
Kira's rig. It looks cool.
As Pat described this to me, Kira's foot with the rig that was default attached, like kind of floated off the ground as she walked, and he had to rebuild and do some custom work to make sure that her foot actually stayed on the ground. Because it turns out that doesn't just happen automatically. Gravity isn't real. It's just something that we tell certain things exists.
That's true. Oh, box friend.
Yeah. So this is the part that I'm super excited about. Box Friend has been kind of backside of the project piece for ages now. The idea is that we have a fully adaptable humanoid rig on a placeholder model that lets us build and test animations, which are an integral part of character function, before we finish even concept art and modeling. So Trex, you and Pat have been working a whole lot together on the animation system. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what BoxFriend is and why they're so important, and then we can roll on to see the video of all the amazing work that BoxFriend is now accomplishing for us.
Yeah, so to put it like very like basically, BoxFriend is sort of like the default rig, the default hero. In fact, if you create a new hero in code, it will be BoxFriend like physically. And so what he sort of represents is like a baseline adaptable rig that could be extended into other rigs. So this is where sort of like, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, like the scope of our game is very, very wide, meaning that it has to account for a very wide number of things. And that comes from things more on my end, like gameplay ability stuff, but it also has to deal with stuff like this, like rigs. So for example, if you're making like Call of Duty or something, you can probably actually get away with like one rig because all the characters are biped humanoids, right? But we can't really get away with that. We will have characters that are like all over the place, right? You can imagine, you know, to use some gigantic characters like Charnock or something. He's like a horse, basically, you know. So
Corgi
what
dragon.
you can have, Corgi dragon, yeah, that's pretty accurate actually. But what you can do, and we had to do a lot of research to figure out exactly how to do this and suffer some trial and error. But what you can do is have sort of like a base rig that is like a humanoid, or what? Yeah, I mean he's humanoid. Yeah, he's boxy. He's humanoid, but it can be extended. It is effectively just a hierarchy of bones, and it knows that this hierarchy could be extended. So I think the easiest way to talk about this, and I think you'll actually see this a little bit later, is that like we have this rig, right? And then we have Kira's, current model. So Kira can use animations made for this rig in her model. Now, what that means exactly is that the arms and the legs and the torso will work, right? But Kira has a tail. So what happens to the tail? Well, nothing. The tail just stands there. But because the tail is built into the hierarchy, we can then animate that ourselves, like on an individual level. So this is like a godsend for us. This is like one of the biggest milestones, as you can see, right? Yeah, Kira's using the same run. There's Akka. I do like that he's kind of like manlet Akka, like represent. Yeah, represent. But yeah, I mean, so this is really big for us because like as a small team, like we have to make these sorts of investments in like production capacity in order to scale later. Like we could never get a situation where we have like 10 developers and maybe they have 4 or 5 heroes who are sort of like their domain or something like that. Like that's not going to happen, right? Like we need a bona fide working system for all of this. And so, yeah, this is the rigging side of that. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other sides later on.
Yeah. So the thing that I think is really amazing about this video is that we have the one model and the one rig that that is capable of doing all of our animations for us. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the same rig that Matani uses. And
yeah, I believe so.
And so what this means is that we can animate moves on BoxFriend, test them in the game, and then as soon as we're happy with them, we just get to copy paste those animations into the models for the characters that are still being developed while the characters are being tested, like pre-launch. So, I mean, it's just like the sheer concept of being able to copy paste animations from one character to another is mind blowing. From the perspective of somebody who was working on games that were built in like early UE3 and everything had to be done by hand every time.
Yeah. Right.
So it's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's really useful.
Kudos to Pat and our technical artist who drops in from time to time to provide us with like major technological upgrades. Legolas, if you're watching, shout out, thank you. Yeah. So that's what's been happening in the realm of animation. As you guys saw, Kira is now actually Kira and not BoxFriend version 1.
Yeah, it's actually
forever shall like green Jello Man rest in peace. That is very apt, Ace Warden. Every hero is BoxFriend deep down inside, except for Geist in R4.
Yes, actually, yeah. Good way to put it.
Yeah. So that's what's been happening on the animation side. Rob, can you explain like why animations are necessary before we put abilities in the game? Before we like dive into all the developer tools you've been building for yourself to make the game easier to make?
Yeah, so animations are like a pretty necessary component for us because they house the timelines on which all of the like ability timings and events and all that kind of stuff happen, right? So if there's no animation, like, yeah, it's true, like you can get by with like, I don't know, some timers and whatever, but to really test the game like the way we need to, they don't have to be perfect animations by any means, but you really do need like an animation in there. It's very hard to test without it. And so that kind of leads me into, I can talk about some developer tooling here. So brace yourself. We're about to get kind of technical here.
Oh boy.
Yeah. If anybody here was here for the art and you've been like wanting to get a snack or something, like now is the time.
There's more art at the end, but
that is true. Yeah, actually, you got to stick around while I talk about collisions. So I'm gonna kind of take you guys through a little journey here. The journey is sort of like a problem that we had. You'll get to learn a little bit about sort of the problem space that we work in as game dev, like for this specific in like our game's problem space, right? So I'm going to tell you about something we sort of implemented, and I'll tell you an oversight we made and how it kind of all came crashing down, only to finally reveal to us like the solution sort of in the end. So I'll set you up with a little bit of context here, which is that in Unreal Engine, I'll tell you when you need to play like the appropriate clip or whatever. We got a few clips. It's okay. Yeah, we got a few clips to like demonstrate what I'm going to talk about. So what I'm going to be talking about specifically is hitboxes and hurtboxes. So most people refer to actually both of those things as like a hitbox. So a hitbox is like an attack.
Are you not going to talk about how we basically had to re-engineer like a Devil May Cry quality like melee animation combo system? That first. Then you can get into hitboxes. Sorry, but like it's all and like
Sorry. I was just providing some context. Yeah, that's what I'm getting into.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Unreal Engine context I have to provide you with is that the way like a collision works in Unreal Engine is that it's sort of like everything exists on like you could think of it almost as like a Photoshop layer, where if two things are on the same layer, they might they'll interact. If they're on different layers, they can kind of just pass right over each other. That's not quite exactly how it works, but you could think of it in that way. And so yeah, I'm going to talk about like our melee system, and I'm going to talk about how it kind of like ties into all of our other systems, like which we didn't quite realize at first, and then it all kind of came together in like one moment. So to get an idea, we have a few like constraints on our melee hitboxes, right? So like the first of which is that they need to be of any arbitrary shape. So we do not have melee hitboxes that are like tied to the weapon or anything like that. You can find a lot of tutorials online where they'll tell you to like put a bunch of trace points along a weapon and then they like swing it across or something like that. Sorry, 1 second. But what we have is arbitrary shapes. So what that means is that like what the character is doing is not necessarily related to like what the outgoing hitbox looks like, right? And then furthermore, we want like timings on them, right? So originally we had a system where like these things were all kind of separate from each other, not quite like gelling. And this became even more apparent when we had to do things like spawn projectiles, things like that are like similar but not quite the same. So you can play the first clip now. So this is like what we ended up going with to do the timings. So this would just be like, it should be 0 clip, yeah. So what you'll see here along this timeline is there's going to be like a target start, target confirm. And so what that sort of means, I'm like stopping on each one, is that this is ultimately how we want to configure timings for like an outgoing hitbox, right? You don't want to type in a bunch of numbers and have to know how long an animation is and all that stuff, right? You just want to put 2 markers on a timeline and that's it, right? So that's constraint sort of number 1. Constraint number 2 is what I talked about, which is that we need any arbitrary shape. And then constraint number 3, and this is kind of like where I'm going to get into how it all sort of came crashing down, is that we need these things. We don't just have a melee system, right? We have hit scan projectiles, we have spawn projectiles, and we have melee attacks. And in fact, we have all kinds of other stuff, which we'll get into later. These things all have to sort of work together. So originally I had a system where all these things were sort of very separate to each other, separate from each other. And they had their own collision channels. Like I said, those Photoshop layers were different and all this. And so sort of 2 things happened which made me have to change this. So first is that I was extremely fortunate to get some mentorship from someone who wants to remain anonymous, but they work on a game you probably know. And they gave me some very harsh criticism of that system, but they were very correct. And second, is when I kind of stacked all these things on top of each other. We had our hit scan projectiles, our melee hitboxes, our other outgoing hit volumes, and whatever. It got to a point eventually, and this is kind of the wrench that gets thrown into all these systems, where I had to do real-time dodging. Obviously, this is like a major component of our game. And so what ended up happening is I said, oh, I'm going to do something very clever here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off the Photoshop layer, so to speak. And so when that's turned off, the stuff will just go through them. And I'm so smart that I thought of this or whatever. And so this is how it all sort of came crashing down, which is that you could dodge heals because they're all on separate channels.
Get that heal out of here. I don't need it.
Yeah. So this is yeah, and think about this too. Like that didn't come up in QA until I had already built all this stuff, and it was all like I already had it in my mind that I had to fix this, right? But when that happened, it was pretty bad, right? So we kind of like rolled it all back, and as we sort of scaled these things back, we came up with like a more proper solution. So what we really need is really just one layer. You can programmatically figure out who you touched or hit or whatever, but you just need one way to say, I am a hitbox, show me who I hit, right? That's really all you need. And so then from there, you get into these constraints. So we showed you the timing. And so now you can play the next one now, which I think should show the timings live.
I didn't know I could
So this
do-
is them
now I
being,
do.
yeah. So you can see them, or no, I'm sorry, this is them in the editor, that is. So yeah, you go through and you can like see them all. This is the other thing, is you need arbitrary, and I mean arbitrary configuration. I need like real-time configuration, right? And Matani is a good example. She's got a lot of like cheese wheel, cheese wedge, pie-shaped attacks. So she's got already the primitive shapes are out, right? Your basic boxes or whatever are not really going to cover arbitrary shapes like this. Right. So this is something you can configure like in real time. So if you play the next one, this is just those attacks in action. And I believe it's a yellow material for inactive, and then it turns red when it's active. And so the timings that we saw earlier are applied to the shapes that you see now, and the shapes are configurable in real time, and so are the timings, right? So that's kind of like step one of getting like all of our stuff down. And I believe I have a demonstration next, which is editing some of the shapes. There's something kind of funny on this one, which is that it didn't record the drop-down menus that come up. So it just looks like nothing happens for a minute.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but what's happening is I'm going through a drop-down menu of meshes, and I'm picking out which new shape I want to do. But this is just an example of like how you can kind of change stuff like on the fly. Arbitrary hitboxes, and you have access to their scale and rotation. Yeah, like I made one like a circle. I think I make one like a cylinder or something like that. So I kind of go through here and we come up with a few different shapes. I think I do stuff like rotating them and scaling them and just kind of showing off the different things you can do with them. And then of course, obviously you have access to which one you're previewing at the bottom there. So that's like, this is all like a tool we made like in-house for this. So I guess we got to get through this. We got to get through me picking stuff out of a drop-down menu here. But anyway, we're almost done here. I think there's like a pyramid or something on the last one. Yeah, you can play
the thing that really excites me so much about that video of you going through drop-down menus is that means that if we need to make serious balance changes to the way that a character's attacks interact with the world, it's something that the designer can just go in and play with without having to wait for a programmer to go in and write new code for how their abilities function.
Exactly. Yeah. My goal with all these tools is that I don't ever want to do this again, basically. So yeah. So this is kind of like, as we sort of realized all those problems before, this was kind of like the first step in sort of like figuring this out, right? And so then we're like, okay, so this kind of works for like our melee attacks and everything, any arbitrary volume or whatever. But in fact, there are actually arbitrary volumes all over the place. And we've got a lot of other ones that we can use this for. And we made an API that can turn them on and off, which is perfect for what we do with these volumes in other places. So I think if you play the next clip, when R4 does his charge, for example, he gets like a big sphere. It's invisible, obviously, in the game, but when it overlaps with a player, that's the thing that determines, if it flings them out of the way, right? So that's now just another one of these hit volumes. You can see he has the box for his attack, but then it turns red because it's on, and that when it's on, it would fling someone. I guess I could have put someone else in the clip here to show them being flung, but you get the idea. So this is another like reuse, right? That required no additional programming effort at all. We simply just attached a component that we already had, right? So that's like one, we're like, okay, so now we kind of have figured out arbitrary volumes for characters for this kind of stuff, right? Okay, so now can we make this apply to projectiles? And the answer is yes. And in fact, you can do some interesting things that are otherwise kind of annoying. But because we've done all this work up front, we get them for free. So most projectiles, you could imagine, they would just be red. They would just be on all the time, right? There's not too many projectiles in the world that like would only turn on later or something. But in fact, we do have one that works like that, which is Kira's mine. So what we have to do is we just put a hitbox, on her mine, and then we already have the on-off API. So when the mine arms, you're just turning it on. Simple, right? So you can play the next one, which is, you'll see when she throws it, it's yellow, and then when it hits the wall, it turns red. Now, previously, that was all proprietary like code. There was all this like stuff about an arming state and back and forth between the server and the client, but we already made it, so you just use it. Simple, right? So now we're almost done, by the way. We're almost done. I'll show you one more projectile, and then I'll show you kind of everything coming together here. So another really interesting use case here is, and this is another kind of like exception case that is one of the things that kind of throws developers through a loop, is you can look at, I think the next one is just a screenshot, but it's of the fan queue, or a Matani queue. So she has that big wall of like wind that comes in, right? But it's like huge. And so so what we did for projectiles is, it's one of these hit volumes. It just also cares about the environment. That's all. It just has one extra thing that it cares about, and it'll tell you when it hit the environment, and it'll tell you when it hit a player, and if that player was a teammate or enemy, same as the others. But if you do that with something like this, when you see how big it is, like the second one of those lines touches the ground, it's gonna disappear, because that's what it's supposed to do when it hits the environment, right? So that's kind of like not quite right. Like that's not exactly what you want. And you could do some math or something to like figure out, well, did I hit kind of close to the center? But actually there's an even simpler solution that all you really need is just 2 hit volumes. Like if you have 2 hit volumes and you just only ask about the environment on one of them, and you ask about players on the other, well, you have what you see here. So the little one in the middle is the one that cares about the environment, and then the big one around the edge is what cares about players. So if you play the next clip, you can see, you can throw it kind of like, it can clip a wall and it's not a huge deal. And then I think I throw another one and it hits the center, and that's kind of more like what you'd expect from the behavior. Yeah. So, and that's kind of like how you want it to feel, right? But again, that's a pretty tricky environment, right? So, or a pretty tricky like environment hit challenge, or whatever you could say. But because we made this nice like hit volume component, it actually kind of solves all of it for us. Again, all of this was like its own separate code before this. It's now all just one thing. And so I can show you sort of, now we can kind of bring it all back together. As I said, these are all going along like one, Photoshop layer, so to speak. And so what that means is now you can get the pass-through dodging even on something like a hit scan attack. So I have a clip, and I will say this was very hard to record on one computer, like to do like an attack and like dodge through. So I had to like simulate like 7 seconds of lag on one of the clients. But you can see I'm going to be like shooting someone, hit scan, and they're going to dodge, and the shots will go through. I think I do it like twice. And then when they come back, the shots hit them, and then they dodge again, and they go through. And we get that for free because everything goes through the same logic. So it's a little tricky to set this one up, but.
What do you mean? It's only you doing all of it.
Yeah. This is tricky to do on one computer. But so that is sort of like, that's a day in the life. That's more like a week in the life, but that's like a week in the life of like a really tricky game dev problem in this space. And it kind of shows how interesting the problem space is for our game. Like I was doing a lot of research when I was looking into exactly how I was going to do these this like one hit volume to rule them all kind of situation. And I was watching a lot of like developer streams, and I watched the developer stream for Valorant, and someone had asked them on there, like, how do you do spawned projectiles? And the guy like thought about it for a second. He's like, well, we only really have like 1 or 2. Like every shot in our game is like basically hit scan. And I was like, oh man, that would be so nice. Like, don't get me wrong, Valorant does all kinds of stuff that is way beyond my expertise level. Like their game can run on a 2012 laptop with integrated graphics or something like that. That's how optimized they are, which is insane. But yeah, like when it comes to shooting, that's not like their problem space for optimization is huge. Their problem space for shooting is like basically just hit scan. Whereas we have to do that. plus spawn projectiles, tons of them, plus a melee system, plus all these other like ability, like R-Force charge and everything. So we really had to think quite long and hard about this. But this is probably the most like the thing I'm the most proud of having programmed on the project thus far. So hope you guys have appreciated. That was my TED talk.
Yeah.
But yeah. I see somebody asked. Oh, sorry. I see somebody asked about collision with each other, and yeah, that's like a separate Photoshop layer in this analogy. And yeah. So players right now, at least, an enemy will block you, but your ally, you can walk through them. We will probably tweak some of that to a degree, but it's available to be tweaked. That is a pretty solved problem for us.
Yeah, it has the same level of customizability as everything else we're doing.
Very nice.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a really good solve. So good job. You've done a lot of the very difficult things that we needed. So good job.
Yep.
Yeah, and no more dodging heals. Yeah,
nice,
no more dodging heals.
What if I really
they are
don't
separate
want
from
to
each
get
other.
I mean,
I guess that is true. Yeah. I mean, I guess you just run away then.
All right. Oh, yeah. What's this one?
Yeah, so we've got one more piece of like collision and attack functionality content that is another like unique and tricky problem that kind of ties into the projectile thing and also the like volume of hitboxes thing. This is melee attacks don't go through solid objects, which it turns out is really important. So how does this work, Rob?
So yeah, inside the hit volumes, there is also like some tracing going on after the fact to make sure that you're like in LOS, basically. That, to put it like very simply, that's basically what's going on. And then as you can see, it's kind of hard to see in this video, but there's also like an additional thing going on where it will also tell you like where on them you hit them, if that makes sense, like where the hit connected. And so that's how you can do things like play the VFX in the right place and all that. So you don't have to do this sort of like, I know a lot of places do like, it's just like a random slash or something will come on, but ours will actually be like, at where you're aiming.
Yeah, so it's a little white spark in this video, but down the road it'll be something more visible, and hopefully we'll even get to the point of like custom on-hit VFX for every character's attacks, just so you can really see who's doing what all the time. And they'll still be, subtle, but you'll get to tell that your attacks are hitting people, which is nice.
Yeah, a lot of the in-game UI and VFX hasn't really been worked on yet, so I mean, for what we have, it's pretty good.
Yeah. All of Matani's VFX were built by Killboy, who is our second programmer after, well, he's been on the project longer, but he's the programmer that isn't Trex. And he taught himself all of this. So hats off to Killboy for this stuff looking as good as it does. He just kind of went into a cave and came out with these VFX, and we love him for it.
Yeah, and all the main menu stuff, really, that you saw.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Very, very awesome. Yeah. All right. Ooh. AI. Let's see what we got here. Rob, you want to talk about
it? We can go over this one really quick. I actually cut all the images from this section because they just don't look super good. It's really hard to tell that a computer is thinking via images, but
a little bit.
The AI system is coming together, and as you described it to me the other day, Rob, it sounds like once it's done, it's going to be pretty done for a long time. So can you just go over what AI is going to look like real quick, since we've got, like, what are we even looking at up here?
Yeah, so what you're looking at here is sort of like determining how they can, or I suppose where they can jump and how they're going to do it. So Unreal has like some built-in tools for this when it comes to like movement. Thankfully for us, the AI in our game will always be pretty simple. Like, you only have 4 abilities, so there's only so much you could really do with AI. So that is one area where the scope, well, the scope includes AI, but I guess at least it doesn't include that much AI. So that part is not too bad. Really, it's about the movement and everything, right? So Unreal has like a nav mesh tooling for like, move to target location and all this. And then you can even do stuff like, what happens if it gets here and it wants to go here? Well, it jumps, and that's kind of like what you're seeing through the green dots.
Awesome. All right. Shall we say we're done with AI for now?
Yeah, I'm posting this in chat, but if you're interested in watching the progress of our AI development, our other programmer, Mushu, is developing those systems, and he streams his progress. And you can follow him at Wushu Works on Twitch or Twitter.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, he's been doing some great stuff, and we're really excited to plug what he's been working on into Geist's minion when that's ready to roll out, and see that crazy idiot run around with an axe.
Yay! I can't wait. It's gonna be great.
Mangoose, you've missed about an hour.
Yeah, a little bit. All right. Well,
we're gonna have the VOD up on YouTube later tonight, though.
Yeah. So you'll be able to see.
Okay.
It. But yeah, I mean, I guess as we're winding down, because it's been over an hour, the last bits we want to show you guys is some of the hero art that our amazing artists have been doing. Unfortunately, Tart didn't get anything in this one because we've been making her work on cake, which looks great, but can't show that yet. Sorry, Tart. Next time. Anyway. All right, so first up is Matani. The piece on the left was done by Kezi, and the piece on the right by Min. Both beautiful. Probably will be available as wallpapers after this, probably. But I don't know. There's been some talk about the duck that Matani has, and I'm like, well, how does that duck fit into her life? So this is what Kezi made in response to what I asked. So it's like a dream sequence, and I mean, beautiful, honestly. It makes a good phone background.
Nice weather for ducks.
Exactly.
It is my lock screen right now. I love it.
Yeah, just beautiful. And of course, like, Min's been doing a whole series of our characters, and Matani looks so awesome here. I really, really like the pattern on her fans. Like, who knows? That might make it in somehow in a skin or something. It's really cool, though. Just good job, you guys. All right, next up. So, Tart and Kezi have also been working on Kira. Kira, done by Min. You might notice something different about her. That's all I'm gonna say about it. But something might be happening with her sometime soon, so you'll see. Anyway, gonna move on. I'm so sorry. Anyway, okay. So here's R4. Oh, fluffy boy. Or they. Fluffy they. I don't know. And then Akka, looking awesome. I tried to make them as close to like their actual heights as possible. I think R4 is even actually a little taller here, but yeah. He's really tall.
R4 is like 9 feet tall.
Yeah, I mean, cuddly, fuzzy killer robot, but awesome. I really like Min's rendition of both of them, honestly. It looks so good. It's really cool to see Akka with some art too. Like, you know, Jacob did an awesome rendering job, but like, more. I need more. All right, anyway.
Yeah. Jacob, Min, if you're in the channel right now, plug your platforms. I'm sure people want to see more of your art.
Yes, because you guys are amazing. Just like this Geist picture. Look at this. It's almost like a Shakespearean kind of experience going on right here. I don't know. I love seeing the characters like this. It's really cool. Like, we need more character art. Okay.
We're getting more character art.
We are getting more character art. This is ridiculous. My computer decided to die when we had literally like 5 minutes left. Anyway, so the last thing I want to bring up is Jacob has made some really, really cool server emotes, and I just want to prepare you for this. So we'll be adding them to the server after this, but they look really cool. All right, are you ready? All right, so we got some amazing Akka emotes. This one will probably haunt your dreams. I don't even know what to call it. Do I call it like sexy Aka or something? I don't know. What is he trying to do? What does he want? I don't know. But yeah, anyway.
I love this emote.
It's great. So expect to see that in the Discord. Today, hopefully, we'll get it in there. He spent a lot of time doing these. They look awesome. Good job, Jacob, Min, Kezi, Tart, D-Pad, everybody from the art team. Good job, honestly, for just being amazing. All right, guys, I'm gonna go back to this screen just to close it out.
No, we can just stare at Aka eyebrows forever.
All right, fine. We'll stare at his eyebrows.
So I wanna give extra kudos to all of our artists who have been doing all this amazing stuff. The big reason that there's not way more art in this stream is that they have all been going absolutely bonkers putting together our trailer, which is almost done. Very, very close. We're gonna start dropping little teasers for it in the very near future, and we are going to confirm, this has been theorized for a while, but we are going to confirm for all of you that in our trailer, we will be revealing the name of the game. So for everybody excited to find out what it is.
My eyes hurt, sorry, I had to switch.
It's going to be in the trailer.
Absolutely excited. And honestly...
And the trailer is coming out before the alpha.
Yep.
So, trailer, phase 0 of alpha. We're going to figure out everything that we learn from trying to test our servers at scale, because we haven't had the opportunity to do that until we've had a bunch of testers to get our hands on. So thank you all, everybody who signed up for the first round of alpha invites. Once we're absolutely certain that's ready to ship, that's going to go out. So trailer, phase 0 of alpha. Once the servers are ready, we're going to start piling in all these features that we went over in the stream, and that's where things really get rolling. So thanks everybody for tuning in. This has been so much fun to share with all of you, and we can't wait to round the next corner and get you guys in there. It's going to be so good. All right. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night. Thanks, guys. See you next time.